Thank you for joining me, Dr. Miller, in this podcast called Brain in You. Very
Thank you.
excited to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. And I think so. Ayurved works with parents, individuals, children who are neurodiverse, primarily ADHD, autism, or any other kind of neurodiversity. And we work with them through nutrition, which is all brain specific nutrition, not medicines, but simple nutrition. And what interested me in getting you on this podcast was that when I was going through your profile, I realized that you have a natural way of intervening with injuries also related to brain, not just neurodiversity, but I saw that there was epilepsy, there were seizures, and much more. And in our parental community, we do come across these questions very often that my child has seizures or he has epileptic episodes. So I think this particular podcast will be very interesting for them if there would be a way for them to manage things in a more natural way. And I'm sure they can reach out to your channel, they can reach out to what you do, and you have your own method as well. So let's start. Maybe why don't we start with a brief introduction of yours?
Yes, absolutely. So I actually got into this space because go back 8 years ago, I was having seizures, about 3 grand mal seizures myself a month. And I had brain surgery. There was a leak in my brain. And I was also put on seizure medications like Keppra. I was put on Depakote, a lot of things that had a lot of side effects, but they weren't stopping the frequency of my seizures or the intensity. And so, a long story short is that I ended up getting into studying the brain and how it worked, and then realized that I could heal it, unbeknownst to me at that time. And through the idea of neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to change, heal, and adapt over time in accordance to what we do, even our thinking patterns. And so, long story short, I got into this and found a completely natural approach through changing our brain chemistry.
Mm,
Um, and I wrote a book about it in the back. It's
mm,
called Brain Rescue,
mm,
about how you can heal a brain injury.
mm.
And I totally believe that the best approach to healing seizures, I'm not going to make a diagnosis for anybody here, but it is completely possible to change the frequency and lessen the frequency of seizures naturally.
I actually read this in your website as well that you do speak about this. So there is a better way of managing it. And I think I will go deeper into that in later stage. But first, there is something called a brain rebound method that you speak about. So what is your brain rebound method?
The rebound method is just a handy acronym that I came up with that really talks about how to step by step heal the brain. So we start with the physical, and the R is for refocusing. And so it's just refocusing and through nutrition, through supplementation, just really addressing all of the physical areas of healing the brain. And then step two is engaging. So it's
Mm,
about activating the brain and starting to
mm,
activate it on a mental and physical level.
mm,
The B is what I call brain, which are the five principles of neuroplasticity. So breathing, repetition, association, intensity, and novelty. The O stands for optimize. So we'll get to a stage to where we start to optimize brain power. The U stands for unleash, which means unleashing the unconscious mind, really activating things at a deeper level. The N stands for nexus, which means connection, realizing that everything's interconnected. And the D stands for dedicate, which means dedicating yourself to a long-term recovery because
mm.
science shows it takes 60 to 254 days to really rewire the brain holistically.
Okay. And when you talk about this engagement, is it also to do with some kind of yoga?
I call it mind
Yeah,
gymnastics.
yeah, got it.
So
Got it.
it's
Got it.
it's kind of like gymnastics for the mind and
Something like a
just
brain gym exercise?
exactly, like brain gym exercises really
Yeah,
start to engage the brain, and then other exercises you can do beyond
of
that.
course, of course. So, I was going through some matter that you had mentioned on one of your pages, wherein it was stated that in addressing concussions and brain injuries, natural interventions can come to rescue. So, how does nutrition counseling or herbal medicine or lifestyle modifications help with brain injury?
It helps tremendously. And when you're eating the right nutrition, it's like the building blocks of the brain. So I think of it like a bridge that you're building. And in order to build the bridge, you need supplies. And so supplies are the nutritional aspects of building that. Without that, there's no way of connecting the bridge.
Hmm, understood. When you speak about herbal medication, are you referring to Ayurvedic herbs here or something else?
So I believe in natural. I don't like the word medications, but I say that natural medicine, which are the natural herbs, but
Mm,
it's also natural, the natural way that the brain changes. That
mm,
that we can use nature, we can use sunlight, we can use
understood.
meditation, things that don't have medications
Mm,
with
mm,
bad side effects, horrific
mm,
side effects.
mm. So before your injury, Dr. Miller, you were already a naturopath. So all that information or all that learning helped you in your recovery, or did you go for this after being diagnosed or after having that brain injury or seizures, like you were saying?
It was afterwards that I got into this. Before I did my studies in business management, so I
Mm,
wasn't even in the whole but after this I learned how to learn. And that was a revelation for me because in
mm,
school I was not good at school in the past. But when I
mm,
learned how to learn, I can read books faster than I've ever been able to. So
mm,
it's really possible for anybody.
mm, mm. Interestingly, when I always had interest in nutrition, I'm obsessed with it, but I never studied it formally till about 4 or 5 years ago when COVID had hit, I think, and we were in
Mhm.
Singapore, and I said, I want to understand how does nutrition behave in the body. I know what calories things are, what vitamins things are, but how does it get absorbed? That whole process of absorption, and that is when I signed up for this um, nutrition science course at Stanford in their health school, and that was never my studies from the beginning. I was just a master's in eco doing financial work, but this was always the passion, and I think that has driven me into creating these food supplements now for the brain.
That's so cool. Health is the number one wealth. It doesn't matter how much money we have. If we don't have physical health, it's going to lead to a poor quality of a life.
Yeah, true. There was another mention of epilepsy on your page, and you focus on some underlying factors like nutritional imbalances and managing stress. So, can
Mhm.
you share one specific change that has proven effective in managing seizures?
Absolutely. And so recently I've been using a vagus nerve stimulator. And I've met a really smart guy. He was with MIT and Duke, and he had a company called Truvaga. I
Mm,
don't have any affiliation with them, but
mm,
I found it rapidly reduces seizure frequency, but also
mm,
it reduces inflammation and sends positive, it creates positive effects on neuroplasticity in the
mm.
brain. So that's an amazing tool because you can use it just for 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes at night, and it really activates the brain and causes a reduction in inflammation as
Okay.
well.
Okay. And do you think that happens by maybe calming down the stress levels? Why does that? Why is it working?
I would say several reasons, but probably reason number one is it reduces stress by activating the parasympathetic nervous
Yeah.
system,
Yeah.
because the rest and digest. and really helps get you out of a chronic state of stress very
Mm,
naturally. That's
mm,
number one for epilepsy, because
mm.
when you're extremely stressed, it sends the signal and causes an electrochemical cascade in the
Yeah.
brain.
Hmm. Hmm. No, this so when I speak about vagus nerve to my parents, I literally show them a nerve which goes between the gut and the brain, and I say, this is like a highway. It has to be empty for signals to flow. The moment there's a traffic jam here, so something wrong in the gut, it's gonna mess up with your brain and vice versa. So I'm very sure that whatever they're building, which is helping calm down the stress, will definitely help in reducing at least the frequency of the seizures and maybe even the duration of it.
Hmm. And the intensity as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it possible to slow down brain diseases like Alzheimer's as well?
I personally believe so. And even the evidence shows that it is reversible. And this is all through the science of neuroplasticity and epigenetics, that it is possible to reverse certain diseases. I'm not going to say that everybody, some people I believe are too far gone, too far
Mm,
back, but I believe
mm,
through lifestyle changes, that it is possible to reverse a lot of that.
mm. Can you maybe walk me through how does a nutritional therapy or lifestyle modification result in slowing down any brain disease?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So once again, we spoke about nutrition being the building blocks of the foundation of restructuring the brain and giving it the proteins that it needs to build and change. But if we're only eating good nutrition, but we are thinking fearful thoughts, or we're doing fearful actions, or smoking cigarettes, all of that compounds are not going to do anything good for us. So it's important to pair the nutrition with positive habits and positive thought patterns, because it's all interconnected in positive emotions, visualization, meditation, affirmations, all of it, but also eliminating the things that are not serving us in our life.
Mm, mm. How about high achievers? So, high achievers and professionals, they often lack cognitive enhancement. Are there methods? Like, what methods can high achievers use to improve focus and memory?
Yeah, I think when it comes to focus and concentration is always going to be number one, because if you can focus very well and not get distracted, then you're going to be better off. And one of my favorite things to do is a candle meditation for people, is just to light a candle and put it up in a dark room and just notice how your mind gets distracted and refocused. So just keep
Mm,
bringing your center of attention back to the candle. Start with 5 minutes and move on up from there. But it's
mm.
really single pointed focus and concentration that is really going to help people get better and optimize their brain health.
You mentioned that you have now become a better reader, maybe from earlier. Is there some advice that you can give, or any one tip that you can give how to do that?
Yeah, I would love to. I've got a book right here.
Mm-hmm,
So one of the things that you can do is to use your left finger.
mm-hmm,
Um, and the reason why is it stimulates the right brain. And it also, like Braille readers, we actually get sensory information from touching the words. But what you can do is, by speeding up your reading pattern, by tracing only halfway through, and halfway through the line, and just repeating that, because our side focus, our visual field extends beyond just the center of focus, so we can use our isocods, what they call them, by only tracing halfway through the page going down, because your subconscious mind is going to pick up all of that information anyway, and it can go much faster than you can, and just speeding up little by little. That's a small tip.
mm. I think this will come in handy. Maybe I'll try to do a separate reel on it. Because I noticed on your page you do show some brain exercises. So we do that too on the page, but if there's something I can learn from your book or from your page, I'll probably just reshare that video. Okay, is there anything else that you would want to share with these 4, 5 year olds up till the teenager age, the kind of children who are our target audience, their parents? What can they do better? What can these parents do better at home to see, for the lack of word, I'm using immediate outcomes because that is what they want to see. So if
Certainly.
there are, let's say some two best tips you would want to give to these parents that they can try at home for better outcomes.
So the first thing I would say is just understand that your child's brain is incredibly plastic and malleable and changeable at that age. So the first tip is being using positive reinforcement. So don't tell them what they're doing wrong. Just reinforce the positive behaviors again and again. I think a lot of parents already understand that, but just like there's just so many studies that say we need positive reinforcement. And then the second thing I would say is help them eliminate things, help them get off of their phone because this spikes dopamine levels, but what comes up must come down. So finding ways of spiking their dopamine naturally through sun, through nutrition, through exercise. Exercise is the most important thing they could probably do for their child. So I'd say optimism and movement, daily movement and
Yeah,
exercise for that kid.
yeah, yeah. Do you work actively with this age group?
I've worked with a handful of children. It's not my specialty,
Hmm.
but I believe I'll be doing more and more of that moving forward.
Is there any food? Now, since I deal with a lot of nutrition, so I'm asking this question. Is there any food that these set of individuals who have epileptic events or seizures should avoid?
That's a great question. I would say avoiding as much sugar as you possibly can because sugar really spikes blood glucose levels. And really, the ketosis diet, the keto diet is a great way for the brain to create its energy through fat and ketones in the brain versus blood glucose, which can cause a seizure pretty rapidly when those levels get high.
So you're saying a diet full of good fat
Hmm.
and protein.
Yes, things like avocados,
Yeah,
things like healthy fats from
yeah,
meat, such as those.
understood. Anything else that you would want to add, Dr. Miller, that maybe I missed, but there is something that you feel would add value to these viewers?
I would say start with where you are right now because I think of it like a mountain. We all have our mountain to climb when it comes to brain health and cognition. Is start where you are and focus on where you do want to go, and you'll be surprised how far you've gone in a very short little amount of time when you reflect. So we're all climbing that mountain. Focus on where you do want to go and believe and trust in that process.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually reading Kipling's poem called If. Have you read that?
I have not.
Okay. It's very similar to what you just said, and it's also very similar to this holy book that is very famous in India called the Gita. So that's
Bhagavad
exactly what it
Gita.
is. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita. So that's exactly what it is. You have to just keep at it, you just have to, you need to have an aim and you have to work for it, but not be dissolved in the aim. That's what Gita says, that you're not the aim, you are working towards the aim. So,
That's
yeah.
true.
Okay, this has been really useful. And thank you for joining me on this.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was a great conversation. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me on.
yeah, yeah.